guests. So if it's okay with the board, I'd like to put them as our first presentation, and we'll bump the others down. So our levy will become our second, and so on. And that's all I have for tonight.
Sounds good. I'm get a motion to adopt the agenda.
On I have 7B and 8A. I'll have to recuse myself. So if you want to take those
On the
out
consent
separately.
agenda, we'd like to pull those separately.
Which ones, Ann?
It's a 7B.
7B resolution
Oh.
2304-053.
The E-rate.
Recuse myself due to employment conflict, as well as 8A, data serve.
That's the data server.
Mm-hmm. And then I also would have to recuse myself on that I under the treasurer's report. Yeah, I volunteer, non-renewals, family member.
No,
No, not that, but just the data serve.
the data server. It's right 8A. It's at the very bottom.
Oh.
It's the last thing. It's on page 9 of 12.
Thank you.
All right, with those additions, subtractions, and corrections, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
Can I ask one question? Before?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess you better get the motion.
I'll make the motion.
Can I get a second? Second.
Do you want me to create separate resolutions? How are we going to handle those specifics? Either you, one option is for Mrs. Thomas not to vote on consent, or we can create separate resolutions.
Do you have any concern not voting on consent?
I shouldn't vote on consent at all
Just
for
skip.
the two related to employment.
Do you want to pull that whole consent out and do separate resolutions, or do
Could
you
I
want?
please?
Yeah,
Mhm.
do separate
Thank you.
for those two. If we can pull the
Okay, so let me so we've got the E-rate, right?
Yes.
7B and 8A, which is right after the data serve, the E-rate and the data serve.
Okay.
They're back to back.
So we need to think about, those are my section.
Yeah.
Take those out before we consent agenda.
Right, and then I'm going to add a couple more resolutions. Do you want to put them right at the end of my section? We've got calendar at 59. Do you want to do a 59A, 59B, and 59C?
Yep.
Okay.
That'll work.
Kim and I will do a little sidebarring over here, and we'll get everything organized. So there'll be 3 new resolutions: 59A, 59B, and a 59C, and we'll. Okay.
Call the roll.
Mrs. Boer,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yeah, no, you can vote on
Yes.
the
Okay.
on the agenda itself. All right. Want to move on the presentation?
Yeah, we're ready for presentation. So, the board has been very involved, and we've done committee work and also at the large group board level on our math focus this year. So we've done some work instructionally this current school year, and then preparing for next school year, we've adopted a new K-12 math series. And one of the next steps we talked about, and we talked about in committee, is on implementation. So we've been soliciting some different ideas and proposals. And there's a couple of people I wanted to present tonight, or introduce tonight, so they can make a presentation. And what they're doing is working with the state of Ohio model, which is called Effectively Implementing High Quality Instructional Materials. And we have Angie Hamburg here from the ESC of Central Ohio. She is the HQIM specialist in high school math pathways certified executive coach. And Angie's been with the district in the past and has had a good history of working as a teacher administrator. And we also have Stephanie. Is she here? Oh, Stephanie's here, sorry. Stephanie Warner's here from the ESC. Also, she's the Regional School Improvement Facilitator, Curriculum Instruction. So later in the agenda tonight, you will see a resolution where we're asking the board to approve a contract with the ESC of Central Ohio. And in essence, what they would do is help us implement this new math series. There's also a couple coaches that we have in the agenda as well. Now, all of that is paid through with some of our federal dollars we have remaining. But we thought they would be able to help with both aspects of that. And without further ado, I'll let them do a high-level overview because it's very impressive when you see the state model and what they're doing at the ESC level, and they have some things to certainly share and celebrate that are exceptional.
Thank you, Dr. Wagner. I'm guessing you want me back here so you can pick my voice up for the recording. I feel like I'm really far away from you. As Dr. Wagner said, I'm Angie Hamburg. Did actually work here as a middle school principal. Left in 09, so it's been a few years, but loved my time in Johnstown. So it's nice to be back and getting an opportunity to interact with the district. I wanted to take just a moment. My job at the ESC of Central Ohio is to work very closely with the State Department of Education on what we call HQIM, high quality instructional materials. This has been a huge emphasis at the state level. They've been building awareness for the last few years on how important instructional materials are. And they've actually taken a lot of the state level ESSER funding to fund a pretty large project to really try to push and get those high quality instructional materials in front of our children in Ohio. So kudos to all of you for recognizing the importance of, making sure that you're getting new materials. And in the past, I used to work as a curriculum director, you didn't have a lot of these tools to find those. It was like, what are our neighbors doing? Oh, we like these, little stories in this book, but there wasn't really a lot of resources out there. So the state has really put a lot of resources together. I know got to see Debbie Seibel on a webinar that we put on with Ed Reports, working through that adoption process. So you've done a lot of that hard work, but I will say to you, you're fortunate to have a superintendent and director that recognize how important it is to do the implementation work with that, because I know for you, when you make a purchase of instructional materials, that's a huge investment in your children's education. And if you don't put the work into the implementation, you may end up with the exact same thing that you had before, just different books. And I know that's not what you want. So, again, hats off to all of you for having the foresight to realize that the implementation of anything you do, but especially with HQIM, is really important. So where we're fortunate is not only I'm kind of working to help oversee that project at the state level, but we're doing a pilot this year across the state. The state is trying to build capacity at the ESCs, Educational Service Centers, to develop our capacity to come out and work with districts. So we have 51 ESCs across the state. Ours is obviously one of the largest in Central Ohio. And we only have 6 ESCs that are piloting this first year, and we'll have another 15 or 16 that are picking it up next year. And what that project is that Dr. Wagner talked about, we're so fortunate to have Stephanie, and she's going to do the majority of talking here in just a second, but I wanted to take a moment to just point out that Stephanie is one of the leads on the project, learning how to do this implementation work with a vendor called Instruction Partners, working closely with them and with Ed Reports. And so she's really had a great opportunity. She's currently working with 2 elementary schools in the Southwestern City Schools District to learn that process so she can go out and replicate it with other districts. So excited to be able to bring that here. I've been able to sit in on some of the meetings and training, and I think it's a really, really great approach to making sure that those materials are getting implemented with fidelity, that teachers have an understanding and the resources they need, and that kids are getting the maximum that you want out of those materials that you put a lot of time into selecting. So Stephanie is, again, huge asset there. I do want to show you before I flip over to her, and hopefully everybody has this. I said if you don't, let us know. This is on the state. If you haven't had an opportunity, I know some of you have been involved with the selection of the math materials, but if you haven't had a chance to look at the state site, if you type in Ohio Materials Matter, you can find that website. But this is their graphic, and I think it just really speaks to the emphasis being put on it at a state level. When you think about, the effectiveness of the education, you're looking at the pieces involved there, the students, the educators, you're looking at the district school as a whole, which obviously you all represent, and then those high quality instructional materials. So it is a very, very important thing that you're doing here. I know sometimes in a school district, there's so much going on and everything sometimes takes your attention away. So how exciting to be sitting here and actually talking about a huge instructional thing that's going to impact your kids. So with that, I will turn it over to Stephanie, who is the math specialist who will be working with your district. Thank you.
I almost said good afternoon, but good evening, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you all today. Math instruction is near and dear to my heart, so I will try and keep my passion a little bit reserved for us this evening. But as Angie said, I have had the privilege to learn alongside other educators. And I'll see if I can Thank you. But I'm really excited for this opportunity to be able to potentially support the district with the implementation of high quality instructional materials. ODE has partnered with instruction partners to come up with an Ohio curriculum support guide. And with that, when we adopt these materials, kind of comes in 3 phases. Phase 1, as you can see, you've all completed. You've selected great materials to impact students with their mathematical learning. And then phase 2 and phase 3 is where we get into the preparing to launch, coming up with the schedules, devising a plan. And then phase 3 is where we really focus in on the teaching and the learning. And so the work that we're proposing for me to support really comes in with phase 2 and phase 3. As we think about what are kind of the big pieces when it comes to supporting the implementation, because that's really the critical focus for the work that we're proposing. There's kind of 3 key levers for what that work will entail. The first one is on instructional vision. That would be where we're partnering alongside of the district administrators, providing an opportunity to really think about what's that instructional vision for mathematics and what's the K-12 connection, and how do the materials that you've adopted support that vision of what that mathematical instruction is going to look like and sound like for your students. The next one would be the unit internalization. This part is really the critical focus because this is a process where it allows teachers to really dig into the big concepts, the big skills within a unit, and really put themselves kind of in the role of a learner where they're engaging in the mathematics, but also thinking about their students. So what would this look like, sound like? It provides an opportunity for them to unpack what's the expected learning. It also allows them the opportunity to take the assessments and look through it and have conversations with colleagues on what would this look like and sound like. Another part of this practice, it also helps to really anchor the teachers with the instruction. And so it allows for that cohesiveness, again, and focus, K-12. The last part of that is the teacher feedback and coaching. Through this is where we're going to provide these 4 instructional rounds, again, bringing in building administrators. What's happening in the classroom? How are the materials being implemented in a way that's making an impact on students? So we go in with a great plan through the unit internalization. We really put ourselves in the role of a learner. And then it's through that instructional round opportunity where we're going to see and gain some feedback. Another part to that is the coaches. There's the potential for hiring math coaches who I would also have the opportunity to support, but then also having conversations with administrators on collectively across the building, what strengths are we seeing, what areas of potential support could we provide to truly utilize those high quality instructional materials. So those would be the kind of 3 big key levers for what that support would look like when it comes to implementation. We'll open up the floor if there's any questions or wonderings that you have.
I have a question. Did somebody else behind me? On that 3rd module, who does the review of how well we're doing with the coaches and the instruction? Who looks into that and actually says to us, yes, school board, you're really getting what you wanted to implement? It's quality. Here's where we want to go. Here's where we are. Are you the people who do that?
So with the work that we're doing, the goal is to partner to provide the administrators, one with constant feedback and updates. So that would be with Dr. Wagner, with Debbie as well, sharing what's happening within each of the buildings and classrooms, but truly supporting administrators, your administrators in what the conversations that are happening through the support that we're providing, but then having the constant updates with the district.
I think an important thing to point out too is it's a continuous feedback loop. And so I think it's important to look at this process as a support. And so as Stephanie has gone through this, she's gotten some tools from instruction partners to be able to collect data from those rounds. And again, that'll be shared. But the idea is, so I don't know if you've talked much about when you're looking at a formative or summative assessment with a kid, for example, okay? Same concept here, right? We're not looking, so we're thinking more formative than summative. So it's not that we're trying to get to some endpoint and then walk away. It's more, how do we develop capacity? And one of the things we talked about, which I thought was a really great point, we met with Mrs. Seibel and Dr. Wagner, is we want to build that capacity so that as people leave and new people come in, whether it's a teacher or an administrator, that system's in place and it's continual feedback. So the idea is not a gotcha. So when you do instructional rounds, it's not like, yeah, you bought all these materials and, I'll tell you, this third grade, they don't know what they're doing. It's terrible. See ya. I mean, that's not the idea. It's more of a, okay, when we talk with the teachers, this unit is really challenging for them. And so we're going to sit down and dig into it. What do they need to be able to teach it more effectively? What do they need? The kids' data is not showing that they're getting it. Okay, how can we dig into that? So the idea, again, is just kind of a continual, I don't know that we'll have one end product to say, yep, Johnstown, you are implementing your materials correctly, or you're not, and good luck. It's going to be more of a just how, it's more about the process and how do we continue to improve constantly.
Angie and Stephanie, is there an opportunity, though, if there's some checkpoints? We have a committee structure with the board, so it would be good if you talk about some or formative type of assessments. It would be good to have some type of checkpoints where we could say, okay, we're a third of the way into this. You're trending based on your experiences, and I know you're working with some other school districts. You're trending, where you should be, beyond, below, something like that.
Absolutely. And I would just add on one other part as well. I think another big piece, especially when we're adopting and implementing something brand new, it's building teacher confidence in the materials and how it connects back to the mission and vision of mathematics instruction here in Johnstown local schools, but also how they personally feel as mathematics teachers. And I think that's another big part when it comes to the coaching and support. So the unit internalization helps to, as Andrew was helping us to kind of think through of, okay, what are the big ideas? Where do we anticipate students having successes? Where are some potential areas where we could see students struggle? And then what would our next steps be and why? And then through the instructional rounds, but also the opportunities for some like one-on-one conversations, it's helping to think through about individual classrooms potentially as well, and building students to see themselves as mathematicians through the materials, as well as really supporting the teachers and feeling confident in utilizing what you've invested so heavily in. Yeah. So yep, absolutely. So with ODE has partnered up with instruction partners who I have currently been partnering with and learning from as well. They have created multiple rubrics for when it comes to walkthroughs, also really focusing on those 3 levers. And so it has helped and has the potential to help as well each individual building administrator kind of get a collective snapshot, because that's really what walkthroughs are. It's a quick snapshot on how are the materials being implemented, where do teachers feel confident, and where are they looking for individual support as well. So the rubrics help to kind of streamline and give baselines on what's being implemented and how it's being implemented. And those could be a great tool to have opportunities for check-ins to see, is it being implemented in the way that we hoped it to and intended it to, and then what other areas of support moving forward would benefit. And that could be by building. It could potentially be by grade level. So there's a lot of opportunities to individualize and really make it personalized for each of the buildings.
One of the things I think we'll want to do is we'll fit it into our committee structure. At some point, we'll want some, whatever the natural cadence will be as you see it. But whether it's a third of the year, but I'd like to get some kind of reporting back. This was a big movement by the board to adopt this series, and we want to make sure that we at least have some, even if it's like, hey, we're trending based on what we expected or be above or below, and this is why. I don't think we have to get too much in the weeds, but just generally we're heading in this direction and some checkpoints, we can do that.
One of the things that data will really help with too, Stephanie has worked a lot. I know you talked about potentially approving some coaching positions to go with this. And so she works with different coaching cohorts that she leads and trains, and actually does in some of the other districts, they meet regularly. And so they're able to look at that data, and then Stephanie can coach the coaches. Okay, so in your building or this grade level, it looks like consistently we're seeing a struggle in this area. So then they can come up with that action planning around how to use the data then to coach those coaches so they can continue to go in. Again, building that capacity of the principal as the instructional leader, but then also having some support from the coaches. So it's really an exciting model. I have a huge passion for instructional coaching. I think of everything I've ever implemented as an administrator, it's given the most impact on student achievement. So I think there's a lot of opportunity by getting your principals trained on how to give more instructional feedback and having that additional support, that again, you can really develop an exciting model here on implementing these new materials. It's all about supporting the teachers with that.
One of the things that we celebrate here is our tremendous educational program in all areas, but we also are trying to accelerate as fast as we can because, for all the right reasons, but we also know things are going to change here. If you see areas of deficiency somewhere, do you have action planning as a result of your rubric to say, okay, we need to close some gaps, we need some recovery, of some skill set here? I ask that because when you think about math, one of the things that the board has embraced through this is we're looking at the ALEX program and their understanding about some of the things that we do. And that's important because in that situation, for a lot of reasons, but we're expecting more move-ins to the district and they're not going to have the benefit of a Johnstown education, sometimes K through 12. So, but the question is about how you help us close gaps if you identify those through our formative assessment process.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think one of the main key factors, and that's actually what research shows as well, is by adopting a high quality instructional materials allows for students to accelerate, meaning giving them the grade level accessibility, but then also scaffolding up. And through the unit internalization, it allows for the teachers to collaboratively have conversations and dig into the content to be able to determine what are some areas that students potentially may need support with, but then also through the use of the program ALEX as an example, it's going to potentially give some identification pieces as well. And so how can we work together collaboratively to make the best plan of instruction moving forward? So use what I do know about my students, all of the data I am collecting, in addition to the high quality instruction materials, it allows for our students to be provided with the opportunity of on grade level materials, but then also provide the conversation for teachers to think about, okay, how can I potentially scaffold to meet my students where they are? Because the high quality instruction materials, every unit, every lesson has a great plan, but I also, based off the teachers, they know their students. And so it's thinking about how do I use what I do know about them in conjunction with the high quality instructional materials to move their learning forward. So it's through the unit internalization, as well as through the opportunities for coaching and supporting your potential coaches as well to really think about moving learning forward.
The board, beyond this presentation, has a potential contract to approve tonight. So if you approve it via CCO, what we'll do then is we'll infuse this into the curriculum committee model so that we can have our checkpoints and look at this. Debbie, you can help me with that. And one of the things the four of us talked about is if the board approves this tonight, we're going to then keep developing the action plans because we're at a really high level now, but taking this feedback and then we'll put a system together so that we can continue our momentum, especially with our curriculum and instruction committee.
You call it MTSS or RTI here?
MTSS.
Okay, so, obviously if you're familiar with that, and I don't know if you've talked about that at a board level, it sounds like
Yeah,
pretty
all
involved with
three tiered
curriculum.
interventions. That's part of
Perfect.
the thing we did when we looked at adopting this. We looked at the different tiers, and that's one of the aspects we want to grow, and we'll be able to talk to you more because a lot of things are done well at tier 1, but we believe more can be done. And then we're also looking at that tier 2 and tier 3, obviously.
So obviously with implementing new instructional materials, you're really looking to strengthen your tier 1, but it really needs to dovetail into those conversations that you're having in a building and a grade level in terms of this data that we're collecting. So the worst thing you can do is have a ton of data and do nothing with it. So I think it's really critical that this data needs to really flow in with your existing data and not only help you where her focus will really be on improving tier 1 by implementing those materials. There will also be some data available to say, hey, we have pockets of kids that this material we need to adjust. And so again, that becomes part of those MTSS conversations at a grade level. It's more data available for them to be able to look at and help drive those instructional decisions on the team.
I'm glad to hear that because that's one of the things we're looking at social emotional behavior, we're looking at academics and all those tiers. And we've had some discussions about, what if tier 1's not successful, what is our tier 2 intervention? How do we measure that? And then how do we, if we need to get to tier 3 and for how long? And so, yeah.
And that's that unit internalization that she talked about. That's why I want to tie that back maybe to a term that you've already discussed. So it's really helping the teachers with that scaffolding or developing the different tiers for each of those units in the new curriculum.
Great.
Other questions we can answer for you?
Anything else? So I know we've had the curriculum committee involved with this too. So anything that you, okay. So later tonight, if the board approves that, then like I said, the next step will be for the four of us to get together and we'll continue planning on what the next steps are because there's really the instructional support and then also the coaches that we're asking you to help us not only find good people, but then also grow those good people and then give them that feedback loop like you talked about so we can help all of our staff accelerate on this program. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I know you have somewhere else to run. I know you probably want to stay for the rest of the board meeting, but
As exciting as that sounds, and certainly I hope you enjoy yourselves the rest of the evening. We will definitely take that exit, but appreciate the opportunity to share with you tonight. And good luck with your implementation. Thank you.
Thank you for coming
thank you.
out.
It's okay to go next presentation? Okay. So I know the board has seen this in the past. I think we're going to put it up on the screen, so I'll just start talking about it. But we have our levy on May 2nd. We have to issue 2 levies, and we have an information sheet that we've continued to revise as needed. And just wanted to see if there's any other questions from the board, anything with the information. It'll come up there in a second. Just a reminder, as Kim's getting this ready, the 2 levies are for no new taxes. And, certainly needed. One of the things we'll talk about soon here is the 5-year forecast, and Kim will do an overview. But have you received any questions as a board or anything else that we can answer? I appreciate the input in the past because we've refined this document. So. Good? Yeah. Okay. We appreciate all that and appreciate all the board's input. So we do have the 2 renewals, and May 2nd is going to be here before we know it. I can't believe it's this late into April already, but we'll have a report to give the board at some point in the future once we see what happens on May 2nd. Okay, if there's nothing else with frequently asked questions and the levy, then next we'll move to the 5-year forecast. And Kim, I think you're going to review the 5-year forecast with the board.
So we did look at this last month, but we just wanted to kind of go over it again since this will be the last. We're going to have a. Sorry.
Kim, as you're putting this, as you're expanding this, there's been some refinement because I know we've reviewed this in past board meetings, so your data becomes more and more. I hate to use the word accurate because it's not that it was inaccurate, but it's maturing, I would say.
The more you know,
process,
the more
right?
you can fine tune.
Yeah.
So is that okay to see? So again, I just want to reiterate a couple things. One, we have a finance committee meeting again before the next board meeting. At the board meeting on May 8th is when we'll ask the board to approve this. It has to be approved by state law by the end of May. So you'll see this one more time, but the finance committee will see it on May 4th. The nice thing about it being May 4th and May 8th is it will be after the election, so we will know one way or the other whether or not we get to add back in our tax data or if it has to stay excluded. Right now it's excluded because since they have not been renewed at this point, we have to forecast as if they are not going to be renewed. So again, quickly, you can see here where our property tax starts to drop off as that goes fades out, and the income tax, you can see really how it fades out if that levy is not renewed. The biggest thing since the last time that we have been able to fine tune a little more is some more busing and fuel information. We've updated those numbers, and we've also updated the textbook implementation was included, but now that we have an actual number for something, it was easier to fine tune it out a little further. So the net effect on all of that is without the levy renewals, we are still negative starting in year 4 by almost a little over $1.7 million. And then by year 5, if we did nothing, we would be $15 million in the hole, which obviously the state will frowns upon. So there'd obviously have to be some discussion about what we could do to correct that.
Kim, it's a little hard to see from her. Can you blow that up just a little bit? Because I'm trying to see. So in that cash balance line, oh yeah, that'll work.
Better?
Let's pull it up a little bit. I want to make sure we're looking at this. Okay, so in the cash balance line there, keep pulling across.
Right here where my marker is the cash balance at June 30th if the levies are not
Okay,
renewed.
so we're $1.7 million in
And
the
this is-
negative in what year is that?
This is fiscal 26, so the 25-26 school year.
Okay. And what's the following one? 15 million?
15
15.1,
Mm-hmm. And that's the 26-27 school year.
26, 27. Okay.
Yes. That's if the levies are not renewed. If they are renewed, further down here, we get to add them back in. You can see per year, this line here where my cursor is moving, this is the amount that those levies generate each year. So when you add them then back in, scroll across, make sure I'm in the right place. Yes. So we come back up out of the hole and we're positive clear through if those levies are renewed. Sorry.
And then you said, so we have, is it May 8th then? Is that
Yes,
when?
the May 8th board
That'll
meeting.
be the board meeting. So we'll know. Okay.
Yes.
We'll know on May 2nd. So, okay. Yeah. It's interesting because even in that 5th year, I mean, that's not
That does get pretty low. Yeah.
much. I mean, on a operating budget as large as ours for $344,000, it's not a lot of cushion, but we'll see where economic development is at that point too.
And-
You know, that's,
I think I've said before, and I'll reiterate this again too, economic development is so hard to forecast because
Yeah.
we don't get money until if the Intel plant comes online, that's when we would start getting our money. We're not sure. We know what their projected date is, but if that's delayed, then we're delayed. We won't get the money until they are up
well,
and running.
and it's really tied to
So-
payroll, right? Because that's where
Right.
our compensation comes in. So it's not only it's coming online, as you said, but it's when they hire staff.
Right.
So board have any questions about I know you've seen this many times and it's starting to mature, but here there's not a lot of room even in that 5th year. So we try to be
Yeah,
conservative.
so
That's
we'll
why
have to be
there's a no,
cautious.
what's that?
We're still going to have to be cautious no
Yeah.
matter what we do.
There's no, that's part of the reason we have no increase on taxes, that we're trying to work with what we have without increasing. And, there should be some economic development monies that come in later, but again, that's a should, and we don't know until it materializes, as you said, Kim.
Thanks, Kim. I appreciate the classes and all the things you attend so that you, like you said, the more you know, you can fine tune this for us. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And then the last, if there's no other questions, can I go to the next? Okay. The last, I just want to talk about supplementals a bit, and I know I shared a little bit of information with the board. One of the things we're looking at is how we refine our policies and procedures here in our practices. So one of the things that we're implementing as we see as a best practice is to make sure we non-renew all supplementals every school year. So they're contained within this agenda. We've been working with legal counsel to help refine that process. It can look a little odd, I know, when you talk about supplementals, because, for example, this year we'll be non-renewing for the 22-23 school year now. But in some cases, and I was talking to Robbie about this, where you could actually you will have hired for the next school year. So it looks a little odd sometimes with that sequence, how it works. But it's just a best practice. By its very nature, supplementals are a 1-year contract, and there's no guarantee of future employment with that. So, any questions or anything I can answer for that? Or again,
No,
just
it's
kind of a
just
best
new.
practice.
Yeah, it's just a new practice for us. So
Yeah.
it threw me off when I got a whole list of people being
Yeah.
non-renewed, and I went, "What's this about?" So
Yeah.
now that it's been explained, I understand what we're doing.
Sure. Again, not to scare anyone, it's just, but they're really, by supplementals, there is no guarantee of future employment. It's a 1-year contract, as opposed to other positions, and you prove those for 1, 2, or 3 years sometimes.
Will the people be reapplying for those positions then? Or it's
Yeah, Kim has been working with Debbie a little bit, and one of the things, we did a very abbreviated process. So if you want to continue and the district wants you to continue, then you'll be given an application, and it's basically your name and a reason why you want to continue. So it's nowhere near, you don't have to do the complete application process again. Yeah, just real
it's a
quick.
modified-
You've already
yeah,
had that. You've already had that in Talent Ed. You've been working with Debbie Seibel on that. Okay.
It shouldn't take more than 5 minutes to complete.
Now, if somebody
Has that
new,
been
it's,
rolled out yet to-
no,
not
we
yet.
wanted we didn't want to get in front of the board on that. So we wanted to make sure that tonight goes through, and then we'll roll out the next process.
And the spring coaches are probably the ones that get thrown off the most by this because they're being non-renewed before their season even ends. But,
Yeah,
so it looks
There's some
awkward,
question
but
on
it's,
that, so
yeah.
we have
but
to-
their contract's good until the June
Yeah.
30th.
That's why I said
So-
it can look a lot
Yeah, it
because
just
you're not
looks
renewing
odd.
22, 23, and then you could be
Right.
hiring for the future.
Should we do a financial assessment of all the costs in our supplemental contracts? I haven't seen that probably in 2-3 years.
That would be easy enough to provide at the next finance committee meeting if you'd like to see it.
Since we've added and we don't put the costs with them, I know it's escalated. Something like
Is that at our board session?
We could do that at
Finance
finance,
committee.
or we could
or
do it
the
at board
finance-
session. Yeah.
Finance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's our
Probably
finance?
finance
Yep.
request.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so actually things will sequence out because we got election on the 2nd, May 4th, finance, and then we'll do a board meeting on the 8th. So.
All right, thank you. Any questions on supplementals now that it's been explained?
One of the things too that we'll be doing is having new forms, new contracts as well too. We're having legal counsel. Just update those. They haven't been looked at in years, so it'd be good to get those up to speed. That's all we have unless you have questions.
I'm good. Anyone?
Okay. Ready for board committees?
Anything on the, anyone want to report out on anything on boards, building grounds? And you have anything specific?
I think you're gonna see the contract
Right.
plans. We had a discussion on that in a meeting, so I'm not surprised to see it today.
Yeah.
So, they were looking to see when that contract expired, so that came out of there. Also, they did get the Bobcat back,
Oh,
because it had a same problem as before. It's been so charging.
okay.
Again, it was reiterated.
maybe a one. It could not, maybe it not be this year we want to keep.
Yeah. All right. And just before we go on with the rest of these, I had a conversation with Dr. Wagner about formalizing some of the report outs for the board members from these committees. We're going to come up with just kind of a standard form. That way, whoever attends, that way they can send that out. That way we're all looking at the same thing and reporting out the same
Sure.
way. So,
Yeah, I think that's a good. We used to do my last district. We can send it out. If you want, can I hit a couple highlights from that meeting? Is that
Absolutely.
okay? One of the things that we also talked about is looking at our radio system, and we've been partnering with the city of Johnstown and the police department, and this came up as part of our security evaluation process we had done earlier in the year. So we are looking at new handheld radios, and we would leave one with the police department so they have access. So we're looking at that. Cover the Bobcat, as you said. So we did get that back, and we're watching it now, but we've had some concerns. And I think really everything else has been covered. One of the things we probably always need to highlight and mention is the work that's being done in the General Miles, museum, and a lot of work there. Ruth Ann's been helping with that and helping guide us, so that's exciting. And I think everything else you did.
thank you. Communications, Ruth Ann, we're meeting this Friday. I
Right.
don't know if you had anything else you
A little
wanted to add.
preemptive, we haven't looked at our agenda.
Right. So we'll be meeting this Friday and we'll report out on that. Anything on curriculum?
I think we,
Oh,
go ahead.
on that Friday, don't we have a double time on the Miles?
One got moved. One's at 9
Which is
a.m. The
one?
others.
The Miles Estates at 9 because we have
Right.
and then curriculum we moved back to 1 or 1:30. I'm sorry, communications, 1 o'clock.
One, okay,
Yeah.
I didn't see the 1 o'clock and I had two.
No, that's absolutely right, and we did
Okay.
move it for that reason, to give ourselves some leeway. If the more important of those is the 9 o'clock, so if we have to move communications, we can.
Great.
Over to you for curriculum.
All right. I think we've touched on a lot of the things for curriculum because math has been our focus. A couple small things I was going to say is we are looking to move to trimesters instead of quarters at the elementary and intermediate school. Really, a lot of reasons are logical. Trimesters fall in line with how we do our testing for our children. Those are 3 times a year. So to have trimesters to fall in line with that is very logical. And it also just allows teachers to have a little more time to teach what they need to teach and assess the children on where they are academically. We're still looking at potential summer remediation. We don't have finalization, but that is something we're looking to do in our buildings. There's going to be grandparents stay at elementary and intermediate school, and also will be Battle of the Book. So we're excited about that. Anything else, Anne?
Great meeting, great session.
Yep.
And we talked a little bit about handbooks, and those come forward tonight to the board as well. So, yeah.
All right. Finance, your meeting soon as well. Anything you wanted to add? Alan's not here, but
No, I'm just concerned about the levy. That's
Yep.
all. I'm just,
Yeah.
certainly don't want to run a deficit. I'm not good at that.
yeah. Anything else new on insurance? Or
We had a great meeting with the staff from each of the building representatives. And Cheryl was here, Cheryl Gallagher, Gordon,
Baron?
Barron, thank you. And they went through the options. Everybody got a folder, just like each of the board members have. And it was well received. Out of that, I think they want to do some wellness. And some posters were going to be sent, and very exciting to hear them talk amongst themselves and collaborate what they can do. I think the wellness committee might come out of a different group of people than the one that was there. They want to give everybody an opportunity. And Kim, did we get that spreadsheet out to everybody? I corrected the spreadsheet. Did she send it to everybody, or did she just send it to? I think she only sent it to you. I didn't get it corrected.
I didn't
Okay.
get a corrected copy.
Then I
We
will,
really
I'm
need to
sorry,
do that.
I thought it was sent to everybody. I will send it.
Thank you. We just need to correct the.
We're happy you're here.
I'm still on Easter vacation. So
I told you.
I don't even know what month this is. It's the first time in almost 12 years. I don't even remember what day,
Were you in travel and
but I'm
tourism
losing
around
it.
Johnstown?
Over something. Something's wrong. So I apologize.
I agree something's wrong with you.
You voted that before you came.
Well, take a deep breath. You made it.
So Kim, if
You're
you
all
could
right.
just forward that
Sorry
out,
about
then
that.
that, I think that
No,
just
that's
checks the
okay.
box on that. But everything seems to be going well.
Appreciate that. No, Alan, we've just, you haven't missed any votes, so you're in good shape. So appreciate you hustling over here.
I want to comment on the insurance meeting. It was probably one of the first meetings I've heard about insurance that people really got enthused about asking questions. So that doesn't always happen, but there were a lot of good questions. And thinking to the future how we can all work together, that's marvelous. So we want to bring our costs down. It's exceedingly important to us. So
I think they got some topics out of that too.
I'm
Excellent.
looking forward to education, learning more meetings, more knowledge. So appreciate that.
And I do think there's going to be some education on how to use the app. There's a lot of concern over that. I don't think it may be as useful to our employees yet. So we're going to work on that and get some PowerPoints out there.
Sounds great. Thank you. Policy? Any updates on policy?
Our next meeting's the 18th. We haven't had any since
Okay.
we last met.
No.
So
The strategic planning and economic development, that's ongoing and never at the same time. By that, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of conversations going on. It's just that sitting down and formalizing some stuff. We've had some real good conversations with the city council and the mayor about being on the same page as the school, and we are. It's great that we're working in cohesion there. So it's really just sitting down and discussing how this city grows and how our school district grows. And the fact that we've got partners over there is going to make it essential, because as I've said before, the school board, we're influencers. We're not decision makers when it comes to development. We don't get to say yes or no to any development. Your mayor and council members do. The fact that we've got a good relationship with them and they're willing to work with us is critical to our success. They feel very strongly that schools are very critical to their success as well. So with that, we've had some good conversations and getting on the same page, making sure we realize development will come. It's just controlled growth is what the schools need. We can deal with growth as long as we know what's coming and how fast, and it's not too much at once. So that's kind of the message we've been talking about. We've worked with them, and that's what we're pushing heavily for. And really for us as a school district, it's residential growth. The commercial growth brings in tax dollars, but no rooftops. So that's a separate conversation, and that's where we have to work with them on the economic development side of that, making sure that the schools are brought up to whole on those developments as well. And like I said, they've to this point, it's been a very good relationship with the mayor and the council members over there. So it's been nice, and we will get something set up here soon to formalize the meeting. But it's been ongoing conversations.
Would you like me to set up something before the end of the academic year here?
It would be good. Yeah,
I think we'll be done the end of May, so if we can get something, thereabouts the end of May or so.
because we only have one known development, the Concord. The next phase of Concord, and then beyond that, that's where the discussion. We've got a lot of platted lots that were platted in the 90s. I mean, there's stuff that can be built at any time. We know about all of those. It's beyond that. It is where we're focusing on.
In the one apartment complex, we know.
Yeah, the Coghlan apartment complex over at Leafy Dell
So
as
we
well.
gotta-
So those are the two developments that we're aware of. The city's made us aware of. But beyond that, it's really just working on where growth occurs and how big the city grows and how big the township, because as the mayor's pointed out, they're a very small portion of our entire school district. So it's not just the city of Johnstown. The city of Johnstown grows, but we're much, much larger as a school district than the city of Johnstown. So we have to work with Monroe Township, Jersey Township, Liberty, because they affect our growth just as much or more, or could, than the city of Johnstown does. So it's not just that relationship, but the city's very cooperative on these measures. So
Absolutely.
with that, technology, Alan, anything?
We haven't had a meeting, so we have that in the finance meeting. It's
Okay.
scheduled on May 4th, so we haven't met since then.
Got a nice date. I'm taking off work on the 14th for 2 meetings. You can take off on the May 4th.
We like
for
to,
yours.
and we thank everyone for scheduling them on the same day. That really-
It is. I mean, from a board member, I know a lot of scheduling 2 and 3 meetings in a day is very helpful to us, because if I'm going to take a day off of work, if I can squeeze all the meetings in one day, it's very helpful.
It is extremely helpful. We appreciate it.
We appreciate all you're doing, because I know you have a job and then other commitments. So,
Nope, I appreciate it. Anything else on any of the committees?
no, I think we covered them all. So.
All right. Move on to the consent agenda minus the adjustments.
Yeah, so it'll be resolution 23-04-051, and then 2 changes on that as a reminder. So if you look at resignations, we added Gina Shell to that. And then later on at I, we're going to pull that off as its own resolution. So that'll be when you vote on consent, you will not be voting on I, but you will be adding that one with Gina. And then once you get a first and second, I like to introduce some people before you formally vote, if that's okay.
Okay, great. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Can I get a second? All right, discussion.
So we have 3 new staff already to introduce to the board. So I'm going to first call Mrs. Grace Wagner and introduce our candidate, if you would. And then after that, we'll call Mrs. Marcy Wilson and have her. She has 2 people. But while Grace is walking up, the administrative team's been very busy, and we're already turning the page for the next school year. So
All
go ahead,
right,
Grace.
thank you. Yeah, I am very pleased
Bless
to
you.
present to you guys Mrs. Gabby Edwards. If you want to stand up so everybody can see you and say hi. So Gabby comes to us originally from Dayton. It's her hometown, and then she is presently about to graduate from Mount Vernon Nazarene University with dual licensure, both as a general education teacher and as an intervention specialist. So not to be confused with the gymnast Gabby Edwards that you guys are probably familiar with, but she does have experience. She's been on the cheer team at MVNU as a college cheerleader, so that's really great. A lot of enthusiasm for students and wonderful heart to see them grow. The gap closing that we've been talking about, I think front and center on her heart, so we're excited to welcome her to our team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then Mrs. Wilson, do you want to introduce? You have 2 people to introduce her.
All right, good evening. I am happy to introduce, I'll start with Haley Sayuri, who is not here with us tonight, but is going to be a graduate with a master's degree from Ohio University. She is graduating with a master's in reading. Finished up is currently doing a fellowship in Coolville Elementary, so a little bit of a drive for her. But we were really excited to meet Haley and welcome her aboard to our kindergarten team. Also here tonight we have Kelly Rosinski. Kelly, if you want to stand up. Kelly is a local Licking County resident, has been working at Granville Christian for 6 years, started her career at Granville Exempted School District before moving out of state due to relocation, has had experience in preschool, 4th grade, 3rd grade, and will be joining our team as a 2nd grade teacher this coming next school year. So welcome, Kelly.
Welcome.
So that's it for consent. I think you're ready to vote unless there's questions.
Any other comments, questions on any of the other positions?
Other than I would like to make one suggestion. We used to get the resumes of those that are coming to the board. I miss that.
Okay.
I feel like I get to know someone better.
Sure.
So for 5 seconds, I get to hear where you were, what you. I've almost forgotten half of it. I'd like to be able to see that ahead of time. Just a better relationship. So, thanks.
We will definitely do that.
All right.
Yeah, and like I said, unless there's questions about other aspects of consent, I think.
Any other questions on consent? Call the roll.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Consent passes. Moving on to, are we going on to the treasurer recommendation? Then you'll add
Yeah.
the other ones after.
Well, you know what? Yes, and while you're asking, what I noticed is they're outside of consent anyway, so we won't have to build separate resolutions for those. We'll do one for the supplementals, but the other two are already there, so you can just recuse yourself, Mrs. Thomas, from those. Yeah, you can do all your 3 section. You can do your
Yeah, moving
resolution.
on to the treasurer.
Yeah.
So first item 2304052 is donations. Donation from the Cherry family for classroom supplies at the high school, and a donation from Mike Dillon of Johnstown, who is donating the cap and gown for Mr. Irvin Hartsock, who will be receiving his diploma at the graduation ceremony in May.
Are we doing B as one item as well? Or are we voting individually on
They're
A?
individual.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Discussion? Obviously, thank you to the Cherries for their donation and to Justin's for Irvs. He'll be excited by that.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. And what class is he? 62?
62.
Class of 62.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. He is. He is. And if you know him, he definitely will. So, all right. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
And the second item is 2304053. This is our managed internal broadband system. This is E-rate funded, so we had to go out for bids for these. We discussed this through technology committee also. We received 3 bids back, and after evaluation, Northern Buckeye was the best bid of the 3. And that is for a period July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2027. Annual cost of just under $70,000, but will be subject to our 50% E-rate reduction. So the federal government will be paying half of that for us.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
A second.
Discussion? Call the roll.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mrs. Brewer,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Ready for next?
Yep.
Okay. Resolution 23-04-054 is data service 1-year contract. This is one that has been reviewed, and I know they did a presentation last work session because there were some questions. So we're asking the board to approve a 1-year contract.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Can I get a second?
A second.
Discussion? I think we saw the presentation. I'm
May talk to us.
call the roll, please.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mrs. Boer?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Next resolution is Resolution 23-04-055. It's a math series consulting contract, and this is with the Educational Service Center of Central Ohio. It's an amount not to exceed $16,677, and that those monies are coming from ESSER. I want to note I put not to exceed because we're still refining the plan. It may be less than that, but we thought we would show the board the maximum it could cost.
Can I get a motion?
I'll motion. I'll second.
Discussion. We just saw the presentation. We're fully aware, so call the roll.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mrs. Boer?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Next resolution is the one I'm adding. So this is the one that we talked about at the beginning of the meeting. So it'll be 23-04-55A, and it's a resolution to enter into a one-year contract with Landscape Design.
Can I get a motion?
A motion?
Can I get a second?
A second.
Discussion. It's our typical landscaping. So
Yeah, we've been with them.
Question, we did add some responsibilities in their group, right? Where the band is marching on the field.
Yes.
Okay, just want to clarify.
We did. And then the other thing too, just so the board knows, we talked about it in committee, is we're going to take this out to bid. The contract actually will expire at the end of this calendar year. So it's been a few years since we looked at that. So that's why it's a one-year contract right now. We're not awarding a multi-year notice request.
call the roll.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mrs. Boer?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Resolution 23-04-056 are math coaches. And this is a motion to approve 2 math coach positions for the 23-24 school year. And those also will be paid with ESSER monies.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
A second.
Discussion.
Just as so the board knows what you're authorizing is the creation of 2 positions, then we'll post, and then we'll refine some job descriptions. Job descriptions then post, and then we'll have some candidates for you eventually, but that'll be in concert with the ESC. We want to.
I was going to say, I picked ESC is going to help.
Yeah.
To recruit or fill. Okay.
Who is responsible for the oversight and the accomplishments and continuation of math coaches? In other words, if we implement this program and we really think it's going well, no problem, but who's doing that? Is that your purview?
Yes, that's
Okay,
that's
so
my
you're going to
responsibility.
look. Okay.
Yeah, that's my responsibility. They're nothing against the ESC, but they are consultants, so we're not going to abdicate. They're there to support us, but it's ultimately our responsibility. So that's where it'll be.
So you watch the data and make sure that we're.
Yeah, and we'll use our committee structure. We've talked about it a couple of times today, but we can do full board presentations. Doesn't have to be too much, but I've seen how well the board respond to some of these updates, so we can spend 20 minutes and say, here's a high level out of curriculum, and this is what we've seen. And I just think you'll know that what you've designed is well spent time and money well spent. The other thing is, let us get it up and running, but you can get you in and kind of see what it looks like in live action in the schools too. Okay.
Great.
Sounds great. Call the roll.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mrs. Boer?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Next resolution is Resolution 23-04-057, and this is a contract, general services contract with the Licking County ESC.
Can I get a motion?
A motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
It's pretty much our typical contract with them, and it's a one-year contract.
Call the roll.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mrs. Boer?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Next resolution is 23-04-058 student handbooks.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Can we get a second?
I'll second.
Discussion.
I'm concerned about some of the language that I read in the handbooks. I thought we were going to have a little more open exchange of ideas here this evening. That's not happening.
We don't have to, the board doesn't have to approve it tonight if you want to have more discussion on it.
I would.
I honestly didn't. I was on vacation last week in a dead
Yeah.
zone.
So until I got back this morning, I wasn't able to do.
Sure.
And you're aware of my conversation with you about, yeah.
Yeah.
And I have some concerns just on a couple things, not concerns, but I'd like to have discussion. I shouldn't say concerns.
Why don't I'll have the ministers come, we can have our work session and we can go through some things in the work session in a couple weeks.
Great.
Okay. There's nothing that is published anymore. We're not doing books or, so yeah, we can just push that back and then we can save it we'll move it to the May agenda for board vote, but we'll do work session before that. How's that for you?
I didn't see anything huge, but I just think some of it I know has changed in theory.
Huh?
And we probably ought to take a look. I need to take a look at it.
Sure.
And I appreciate they sent an abbreviated of what they had changed and what page it was on. That was very helpful. I just wasn't able, and I apologize, I was not able to get through all of it. The other thing was the use of technology device. I don't recall seeing, is there an update on that?
There weren't any changes for the
Okay.
coming year. Everything was
Okay.
exactly the same
Okay.
on that one. Yeah, but again, that's not a problem. We'll just take it.
Do we want to amend the motion to table?
And then we'll talk about it on the 24th.
Yeah, yep. Can we,
Yeah.
who made the motion?
I made the motion.
Amend the motion to table it? Is that what we're doing?
Is that what I say?
Yeah.
I think you have my motion.
Yes.
To table?
And I'll second it.
Second, the amend. Call the roll on tabling?
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mrs. Boer,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Next resolution is 23-04-059. That's the 25-26 school calendar.
Can I get a motion?
All motion.
Can I get a second? Any discussion?
I think the board has seen not huge changes. It follows our template. The two big changes is one is on that Wednesday before Thanksgiving. I think I don't know if I told all the board this, but we've looked at student attendance and it really is lower on that Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So what we did is reapportion the day so that people would have that day off. And it seems like that's more of a travel day for some families. And then the other thing is we did move to the trimesters for grades K through 5. And I know Mrs. Davis already talked a little bit about it from our committee.
The only thing that I have is apologize. The only concern, okay. The only concern I have is, and I kind of shared that a little bit at the last board meeting, is that the CTEC graduation is at the same time as our graduation.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think we're going to find out how that goes this year.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like to leave it open, that an open mind that maybe that doesn't work. And the reason being is you're asking a lot of families to be over in Newark at a graduation. Then they've got to rush back over here to secure their place and parking spot and then get a position in our gym because it's crowded, or if we have it in the gym.
Mhm.
I'm just assuming. But also, it's kind of taking away from that celebratory moment. They won't be able to celebrate with their classmates. I'm not sure what they do, but I would assume that it might be the last time some of them see other graduates at CTEC, like at Licking Valley, because there's a mixture of
Sure.
folks. So I just think that we need to be mindful of that. I don't know how that'll work. It hasn't been the same day previously. And I realize CTEC changed.
CTEC changed theirs.
Yes, they did. They did.
And that's this current year. So we want to
Next
look
year.
at.
Just hoping that we can resolve it.
Okay.
Do we know why they changed?
I-
I didn't know if we.
Yeah, we'll look
see
into
why
that.
they-
Obviously, we
just wanna
can't
be
change this year,
mindful,
but next year we
And
can.
I'd like to know if they felt rushed. I mean, I don't know. Maybe
Okay.
they don't.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but it's almost like a smaller graduation for them over there, and then they have Johnstown.
Sure.
Graduation.
All right.
Yeah, that was the same.
Okay.
Like, it's okay. Okay.
Call the roll?
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mrs. Boer,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
And then the next resolution is the one we're adding. So it'll be 23-04-059, and that'll be for the volunteer.
59B or?
I'm sorry, 59A. Sorry.
A.
Thank you. 59A. That'll be for volunteers, non-renewals to 22-23 school year, and that's from section I that we pulled out earlier.
If I can get a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Can I get a second?
A second.
This is just the non-renewals. Call the roll.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mrs. Boer? Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Recuse.
That's the problem with Barry.
Jimmy used to have to recuse himself
Yeah.
because he was on the list.
Yeah, he was on the list.
All right. Any board comments?
I'd just like to bring up one item. Has anyone seen the calendar for the band and the band program, where they're going to be performing, how much time will be consumed in their practices, et cetera? I'm getting some feedback on that. So I'd just be curious, I haven't seen anything about their camp. Do we have any kind of schedule that they're putting out there? Does anybody have anything?
I'll check into it for the board, actually. So is there anything with the band and their schedule for
The band schedule.
Okay.
What are they requiring or requesting the student to do? And I'm hearing some conflicts about, well, yeah, I'm in band, but I'm also in 4-H or I'm in whatever else. And so I just think maybe it would be good to see what that proposal looks like.
Okay.
I do think calendars out.
Calendars out.
Yeah, I've received. I mean,
You
some
received
parents.
it?
Well, some parents have forwarded those concerns.
I
on to me
received it
as
as a
well.
band
So
parent.
does it seem to merit your discussion?
Well, there's,
or-
and I, Dr. Wagner, I shared a little bit of this with you early last week when I received some of those comments, just concern about length of, and then also the summer camp was extended a day, or at least is anticipated. We haven't seen it yet, but that's what I was told is they have extended band camp by an additional day as well. And just overall time commitment and conflicts and stuff like that. So my same thing that Ruth Ann had just asked was asking just to look at it and see is it reasonable? What is going, are there conflicts? And then again, how are those conflicts handled? Much as in our other conflicts, we always tell our coaches, we want our athletes in our extracurriculars, everyone to be able to participate in absolutely everything that they possibly can. So everyone's got to work it out between them and make sure that we don't, punitively affect our students because they're going to football practice and they've got to miss, band, or they go to band and they miss football. Whatever those conflicts may be, we have to make sure that our students are able to work those through FFA if they've got something in the summer and they have to miss something. So it's just making sure that there's a few activities at the school that take up a lot more time than others. And band is one of them. Band, football, those types of activities just take a lot more, dedication pretty much than any other activity that we have outside of school here. So those conflicts arise and that it's really, if it's growing or not, I don't know what the old, I've not seen past schedules. So I don't know what I'm comparing it to. When it got sent to me, I don't know what it's comparative to. Is it more or less or the same? So I just don't know.
Well, we still want to encourage family vacations and no punitive action for the student should they go with their family. And that's what's buzzing around there. I just would like to see the schedule and make sure we're all comfortable.
Yeah, Mr. Swager gave me notice of review for spring break there, so it's on my list to talk to Mr. Biziker, but we'll definitely get a follow-up for you on that and look at the implications. I was taking notes as we were talking.
So there has been some conflicts. I can tell you in many years. Since you're new to the district, there's historically been conflicts. So just how do you handle it?
Yeah, I'm familiar with that with other districts as well too. It's like you said, how do you handle it as a punitive? You don't want it to be punitive or seem that it is in any way. So.
Yep. Anything else from the board?
I saw some of the 4th and 5th grades had pizza parties
Oh,
for their math progress. Very exciting.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I noticed we didn't get an invitation.
Not doing so well now. Gotcha.
Over to you, Dr. Wagner.
Just a couple of things. I know that we were busy last week we know the school district closed, but at some point And we'll follow up with this at our communications committee, but the website's getting closer, so we can use some feedback on that. Also, some of the rebranding aspects. That'll be good. We talked about school calendars a bit, and I'll look at the CTEC aspect. One of the things I want to look at, though, also is looking at since the trimesters is approved for 25-26, I want to look at it for next year and then the following year as well, too. And that would make more sense of me. But I want to be able to work with the calendar committee on that, and I might be bringing that back to the board. A lot going on with the general miles. We've talked about it a few times today. I can say this now because it's public, but the Board of Education, the city, and the Johnstown Greater Parks and Rec District followed our legal brief in response to what's occurring at the probate court. So far we haven't heard anything, but appreciate everyone's support on that. We have a big day on Friday at 9 o'clock that was referenced already because we have received some acknowledgement from the Ohio American Legion. There'll be a representative coming out to our post 254 to review and see where things stand with matters. So more to come there. Mentioned already about staffing, so I know you've seen that. So we have obviously some people we hired. We talked about supplementals. I do want to tell the board it's interesting, and I know Ruth Ann, you and I talked at some point, but there's a realtor's breakfast. It's on April 20th at 9 a.m. and it's our school district in Northridge, and we'll be at the city. So I'll send a note out to the board members if you are available and want to show up. But just a few minutes to showcase. We have some things we're preparing. That document that was prepared last year for the superintendent search has been really a good foundation because we worked off of that. We used that for hiring when we went to Southwest Licking schools, and we're going to reuse that, and we trimmed it around a bit and modified it, but the core is there, and we're going to use that for the realtors as well too. So we have some things we're going to, but I think it's good for that outreach to be able to showcase the district and be able to tell our own message. So we'll be working on that.
If you're ready, we can improve it.
Approve what?
Improve.
Oh, improve.
Improve.
I thought you said approve. I'm like, wait, are you doing a new superintendent search? Like, what the heck? I think this is an odd setting to tell me. I saw you said it as a base. I was like, what the heck? I thought everything was going pretty well. Okay. Okay, good. Yes. No, we will, it's a good base to work from, and we have modified it a little bit to update it. But anyways, that realtor's breakfast is important. And again, it's an opportunity for us to put our best foot forward. So I'll send a notice to the board.
That's where
It's going to be at the city. We're not organizing it. Yeah, we're just invited 9 a.m. on April 20th. But like I said, I'll send an update to the board, and we're getting ready. Mr. McDonald's helping me, and some of the other administrators, so we'll have a good representation there. And that's all I have, unless there's questions.
All right. With that, anything else? We have executive session.
Oh yeah, we have executive session for
No activity afterwards.
no, not expecting activity, but it's for employment, appointment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, compensation of a public employee.
All right. If I get a motion for executive session,
I'll motion.
I'll second.
call the roll.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mrs. Boer,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
And again, no action expected afterwards.